From the Oklahoman newsroom in downtown Oklahoma City, you're watching a late edition of Thunder Thursday. I'm Jenny Carlson here with our Thunder coverage team, columnist Barry Trammell, Thunder beat writer Anthony Slater for another 24 hours or so. And
like 30 hours.
Okay, 30. We're going to keep you on the payroll, keep you working. Thunder beat writer Eric Horn. We've just come back from the Russell Westbrook press conference announcement of his contract extension. And Eric, let's start with you. Significance of this day, what is it in your mind?
Oh, it's massive. I mean, you saw the people lined up outside of the Peak tonight and people banging on the glass when Russell was talking. It's just a huge morale boost for the city and a huge morale boost for the Thunder too. And they were very open about the fact that it's great to have Russell back. I mean, they had all kind of pre-set up things in the Peak that it looked like this had been in the works, not just for a day when it came out yesterday that he was coming back, but it seemed like they had some time to really plan this out well and make it an event for people.
Well, and Anthony, that's a good point, because we've seen these moves these last few weeks happening since the July 4th decision by Kevin Durant, and it does sort of now look like it was all building towards this. When they knew Westbrook would say yes to this extension, that's a little bit, we don't know that date, but it just does seem like this has really been a work in progress.
Sam Presti hasn't been out there, talking and trying to get Rudy Gay or looking at Mo Harkless or anybody else in the free agent market. He has been, his one plan has been to extend Russell Westbrook, and within that was to try to get a cheap piece in Alex Abrines that they had, and then and right when they got Abrines that day, they renounced Waiters. They were able to get him off the books because they had been led to believe that this was coming, that Russell Westbrook was very much leaning towards extending. That's literally what this last month has been about. That's the biggest move they could do, and they got it done. And as we saw today with how much of an event it was clearly planned in advance. They've known about this for a little while.
Well, and Barry, that sort of, it was interesting to me today to hear Sam Presti and Russell Westbrook talk about this, that, when the Durant decision happened, the word is that Russell Westbrook's words were, "What's next?" And at that point, Sam Presti rolls out the idea of this extension. I think a lot of people around the basketball world felt like Russell Westbrook would be on the move at the first opportunity. Did they miss something? Were you at all surprised by sort of the buy-in to the level that it sounds like Russell Westbrook not only had in those days after, but now he puts on paper, signs this extension?
Well, I wasn't really surprised. I'm not saying I saw it coming either. I think what we saw was Sam Presti at his best. He had a plan A, which is keep Kevin Durant and keep Russell Westbrook. But when that plan A disintegrated, he had a plan B ready, and it worked out famously, keeping Russell Westbrook. Remember the dialogue from the last month or so, which is, got to trade Westbrook, got to trade Westbrook. You can't, that came from a lot of writers, that came from a lot of fans saying, we can't afford to lose a second superstar for nothing. But the truth of the matter is, superstars are too hard to collect, to go starting over. If you got one, you got to go all in for keeping one, and that's what Sam Presti did with the denouncement of Dion, with having the cap space available. So it was a great day for the Thunder, but it came to pass because Sam Presti had things in order in case he needed them.
Not only things in order, but the problem with a lot of these fans, you got to trade. They didn't understand the rules and how. This isn't Russell Westbrook sacrificing. This is Russell Westbrook taking $9 extra million next year, being able to go back into free agency in 2018. This is smart for him financially, and I know he's not a huge guy on branding, and wanting to be out there in the face of this, but for the PR of Russell Westbrook and who Russell Westbrook is to the rest of the country, today was a huge day for him.
And it's smart for him team-wise, too. I mean, if he was going to get traded, he'd have to at least spend half a year somewhere like L.A. or Boston, somewhere where he's not going to win any games.
Right.
And we know how much of a competitor Russell Westbrook is. That probably would have drove him crazy. So for him to be able to come back and play with teammates that he trusts and that are still growing, Steven Adams, Enes Kanter, guys that he's helped them enhance their game and they've helped him enhance his, I mean, that's got to be a great thing for him.
Well, it's a great point, Eric, for this reason. Everybody talks about, oh, he can't win a title here, so he'll have to go somewhere else. Well, he's not going to Golden State. and Cleveland's got Kyrie Irving.
San Antonio may have been the only place.
Maybe the only place, and that's a funny fit. It'd been interesting.
It
It'd been
would have
fascinating.
been, yes, it would.
Two of my favorite people in the history of the world, Russell Westbrook and Greg Popovich together. That would have been great.
I'm not sure they would have been each other's favorite people in the world.
Well, that's exactly right. So, but in other words, what I'm saying is, he's not. There wasn't a ready-made place for him to go and win a title the way Durant had that. So this made a lot of sense, even competitively, especially for a guy that sort of takes on challenges like Russell Westbrook.
Boston, you could maybe argue if you wanted to go and build and grow somewhere, but that's not Russell Westbrook. He's not going to go try out Boston. No. And Boston's not.
And they're not that much better than where he is right now.
No.
I would say they're not better than he is right now.
Right. And I think now it's interesting, guys, and this was sort of will be the turn of the page sort of beyond today is what is this team going to be like? Obviously, that's a huge question. I think that's a question for Westbrook. I think that's a question for Donovan. I think that's for Presti. But, you sort of start to look at the pieces and you think, this guy's now the leader. He plays with a very, dominating, forceful, physical way. And then you think about guys like Steven Adams. He's very physical. You think about, an Andre Robertson who's probably going to be somewhere in the mix. He's very defensively physical. I mean, this team, Oladipo. I mean, it's not going to look the same. Nobody's thinking that. But I think it's still going to be really interesting basketball.
It's going to be ugly at times. They do not have very many shooters. It's going to be 18 feet and in a lot of times with some of their best lineups. But it's going to be unpleasant for other teams to play them. That's going to, it's Grizzlies, but like a different version of the Grizzlies to me, where physical, competitive games, scuffles probably more than most other teams. You'll have your little pushing matches. Right. They're going to play with an edge next year because they're no longer favorites. They don't carry that burden. They carry like an underdog type level. And you mentioned the players. I mean, like Russell Westbrook, I think pairs perfectly with Steven Adams. Mm-hmm. I think he pairs great with Oladipo in the backcourt. And then no, Enes Kanter isn't maybe we don't consider him this tough physical guy. One of the world's best offensive rebounders, and he loves him some Russell Westbrook. So he'll want to, he'll look around and
try to elevate.
Be excited.
It's a counterculture roster in this league that's getting smaller and spread the floor and everybody shoots. Thunder doesn't have any shooters. They want to play their big guys together.
Rebound the heck out of the ball.
So, it's going to be the grit and grind Grizzlies, except they got Russell Westbrook, the bowling ball of butcher knives playing point guard.
Well, and you asked at one point, I think to Billy Donovan, the question of rebounding. Mm-hmm. Is that going to, we saw how important that was in the playoffs last year. Does that really become where they hang their hat, their calling card in this league?
It definitely could be. And they were already a great offensive rebounding team before this year. And while they're losing Serge Ibaka and Kevin Durant, those guys weren't exactly the guys crashing the boards on the offensive rebounds.
Right.
You add a Victor Oladipo to that, you got a really formidable rebounding team still. And the Grizzlies comparison you made is apt. It's a team that's going to pound you offensively, but they've got even more athleticism than the Grizzlies in the backcourt. Mike Conley can't hold a candle to Westbrook as good as he is. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they put pressure on people. They're going to play at a faster pace than the Grizzlies, and that's going to be interesting.
That will be.
Yeah, and they have options too. They have some shooters. The problem is you're going to trade rebounding when you go Ilyasova, but you're going to have to at times. Russell Westbrook does need spacing. I do envision at least 15 to 20 games next year where it's just the offense just looks really bad. And Russell Westbrook's got to pound and shoot. And
Anthony Moore is going to play more.
Yeah, that's
Anthony
exactly right.
Abrines could potentially be a
play
big.
A lot.
Right.
We'll see.
We could see a Morrow in a starting role. We could see an Abrines be in that shooting guard position off the bench pretty quickly.
Robertson's going to be interesting. His fit, just because
he may be the odd man out.
Could be.
He was perfect to play with Ibaka and Durant.
With 2 stars, spacers.
Play with 2 big guys that could shoot outside. His minutes are going to be probably going down.
It's interesting. Eric mentioned this off the top when we were starting to talk, and we sort of transitioned to the basketball side of things for obvious reasons. But the impact on fans, on the city, on the organization beyond just the basketball side of things, it felt. Obviously, what happened on July 4th was going to bring everybody down. But just the feeling today, Barry. You were out there amongst the fans.
I went out and stayed with the fans when Westbrook was coming in. And, if you told people 2 months ago, one of these guys isn't going to be here. One's leaving, one's going to stay. First of all, everyone would have guessed Durant's staying, Westbrook's eventually going to leave, and everybody would have been bummed. And, in the big picture, there's still a feeling of disappointment. But after what the city and the state went through with Durant's decision on July 4th, to see the euphoria of Russell Westbrook saying, I love this place, I want to be here, and to a certain extent, he put his, not his money where his mouth is. The Thunder put his money their money where his mouth is. But the idea that, he didn't have to do this.
Right.
He could play a year and he could either get traded or he could play a year and go wherever he wants. But he said, I like it here. I want to be here. And we've heard that before. We heard it from Kevin Durant.
But he put pen to paper.
But he did put pen to paper, and he said, you know what, I'm going to push this out.
Well,
so that just made everybody just exhale and just feel a lot better.
Well, and as Sam Presti said after the formal press conference, these shorter contracts right now, this is how guys are going to do these deals. It makes the most sense for the players financially, stability-wise. I mean, does anybody want to have to keep renegotiating? No, but that's just where it is right now.
Also, competitively, like, if it doesn't go well, Russell Westbrook may want to leave. It may not have anything to do with how the city is, how he feels about the city. Just like, what if the fit doesn't work? What if there's injury problems? For key players. What if the Lakers suddenly, I don't know, all their young guys become really good, and I don't know, they finagle some things, and he sees hey, I could go play at home and be on a championship contender. It's just smart to have the 2 years, and also that's why they always have that extra year opt out, because if Russell faces some injuries, he could just take that year of.
Well, and the other thing though is, and this is why the Thunder should be very optimistic. In 2018, unless there's a massive redo of the collective bargaining, in 2018 he gets up to the 35% of the max in terms of.
There might not even be a max. Which
well,
would
there
help
could not be a max.
Too,
so in other words, Russell Westbrook stands to make a ton of money in 2018, and he can do it here where he says he likes it. And as far as the competitive, they're not going to be an NBA title contender this coming season. However, there's no reason why they won't be a good and competitive team. When you talk about the fit and the work, Billy Donovan proved that he knows what he's doing. They got good young talent that's just going to keep getting better. They're going to win a bunch of games this coming season. They're going to make the playoffs. That part of it's going to go good. In the past, we've held them to the standard of, can they get back to the NBA Finals? That won't be the standard anymore. I don't think it's the standard in Russell's mind. But if they can show this season that, hey, we're a 50-win team, and we're not that far away from getting even better, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and it's crazy. I know we've talked about this, but it's okay to just, even they're not going to win if I told you they're not going to win a title in the Russell Westbrook era, you know how much more pleasant a season that you win 52 games and get to the second round and lose is than watching the Sixers the last few years, blowing it up. Not even the Sixers, the Magic or somebody, or Timberwolves haven't made the playoffs in more than a decade since Garnett took them there. So to use a Grizzlies comparison again, it's okay to be the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies have had their best era of Grizzlies basketball in Memphis, and the city loves that.
It's a great success story.
Yeah. And I feel like today there was a weight lifted off people around here, Eric. I mean, just throughout that press conference, people stuck around. They were pressing up against the glass, and Westbrook was hamming it up with them and just really enjoying it. But more than anything, the fans were enjoying it, and I think that was really fun to see.
Yeah, and I think that for the people that were inside, not just the media, but the fans that were inside as well, I mean, just the directness and the conviction with which Russell Westbrook delivered his message. And it's easier to do that when you've got pen to paper, as y'all said, but that assures you too. When somebody delivers and answers the questions as directly and as flatly as he did, that he wanted to be here and that he believed in what was going on here, that speaks volumes. When people go back and watch that, that's going to make them happy for however many days there are until the regular season, knowing that they've got a guy that's fully committed to that process and being here with the Thunder.
It was such a shock around the basketball world, though, that this news came out that he was going to re-up with the Thunder after so many people thought, well, he's definitely on the first train out to the Lakers or where, fill in the blank with whatever. I asked a couple of people, what did we not know or what did we not put some value on when it comes to Russell Westbrook that we might have thought that instead of what happened? And the answer was basically, this guy loves a challenge. And when you think about it, it makes great sense. The competitor that he is, the chance to really see what he's made of in this new setup. I mean, here's a guy that was the 4th overall draft pick in the draft, and nobody thought he should have been there. Nobody thinks he. I heard Stephen A. Smith say today when Darnell had something on this morning. If you could call him a point guard. I mean, he's first team All NBA point guard,
That
and there's still questions about
Second in the
this.
league in assists.
That argument's 8 years old.
So-
But you know, if they had Darren Collison on this team instead of Russell next year,
that'd
it
be
would
great.
move a lot smoother.
All right, guys. Well, that wraps it up for this Thunder Thursday. It was a late edition, but we're so glad to have got together to talk.
We haven't even talked about the best part. This guy gets to have all the conversations in the world with Russ more. You know, I was afraid that they were going to be split up.
Yeah, it would have been a sad day.
We'll see.
Hey, be sure to stay with the best coverage team anywhere at newsok.com and every day in the Oklahoman.